Alright guys, today I'll be reviewing Dahlonega Mine Train at Six Flags Over Georgia. Before we get started, I want to point out a couple things that I will be changing about this channel. The first thing is, of course, CapCut got banned from the US. Unfortunately, that came with the TikTok ban, and a lot of coaster YouTubers, including myself, are affected by it, so I did have to switch up my video editor. I'm using a new one, so I don't know how it's going to go. It seems weird. I'm really hoping to get CapCut back as soon as possible. But the other thing I changed is the intro. For one, I thought the old one was a bit too long, just took too much time. And two, I decided to change the song to Vienna. It's such a good song. I mean, go listen to it on NCS. It's one of the most hyped songs of all time. But without further ado, let's get into this review. Dahlonega Mine Train was the second ever Aero mine train, so naturally it's not the most exciting ride, but it's still a fun one that everyone in the family can enjoy. Overall, it's got a pretty average wait time usually at Six Flags Over Georgia. I only waited 15 minutes for the front row, but I know the wait time spiked midday. The theming on this ride is pretty minimalistic. There's a shed you fly through towards the end of the ride, but other than that, the theming's really just that you're flying throughout the woods. The restraints on this ride are great. They're pretty comfortable lap bars, and you can hold them up during the ride. And you'll definitely need to do that if you sit in the front row and you want airtime, because there's only one moment of it, and it comes at the very end of the ride. But I'll get into that later. Now, the last thing I want to talk about before getting into the layout is the operations. The operations on this ride are pretty bad, I'm not going to lie. They're not quite the worst at Over Georgia. That would easily be Twisted Cyclone, but you still don't want to get stuck in a big line for this. Now, I apologize ahead of time. I don't exactly know how to do what I usually do during my layout breakdowns yet on this new app, where I show off each element of the ride exactly when I'm talking about them, but I'm sure I'll figure that out in a few days. So for now, you're stuck with this. So let's get right into the layout, starting by turning out of the station and heading up that lift hill. This is a pretty weak start. There's not really much on this pre-lift, but it doesn't matter. Once you get to the top of your first lift hill, you're going to go through a couple turns which don't do anything before hitting your first turn that throws you to the left. It doesn't really throw you to the left, but you do get a little bit of laterals. It's nothing too strong though. It's something everyone can enjoy. After that, you're going to go through two airtime hills, which unfortunately did not give airtime. I was really hoping for some floater on these, but I stayed in my seat. After that, you're going to turn to the left. You get some very weak laterals on this, nothing too special at all. After that, you're going to pop up and unfortunately not get airtime. And then you're going to hit one more turn to the right, giving you some very weak laterals to the left before heading up that second lift hill. And yes, there are 3 lift hills on this ride. After you get off this lift hill, you're going to take a very long and drawn out turn to the left. And unfortunately, this is just a very dead moment of the ride. The best thing about it was the view of Georgia Surfer I got. And after this, you're going to hit a helix, which unfortunately doesn't give too good of laterals. Towards the end, you get a little bit throwing you to the left, but it's definitely not very intense. I was hoping for a little more. After that, you're going to hit another airtimeless hill before turning up to the right, getting some weak laterals to the left before hitting your third lift hill. After you get off the lift, you're going to turn to the left before heading through a little building with a straightaway before heading down the biggest drop on the ride. I wasn't in the back, so I didn't get airtime, but I imagine you could get some airtime if you sat in the back, but unfortunately I wouldn't know because I had better things to do than ride this. And after that drop, you're going to go through a couple twists and turns in the dark, which are pretty fun. You feel the speed before heading up into the one and only airtime moment I got on the ride, which was the pop into the final brakes. This gave some weak floater. It wasn't anything special, but it was something. And that's your ride on Dahlonega Mine Train. This is a very historic attraction, and even though a lot of older rides in the Six Flags chain are getting removed recently, I don't see this one being one of them. But unfortunately, the ride experience itself isn't that great. It's definitely a very tame ride. Everyone can enjoy it. But unfortunately for coaster enthusiasts, there's no sneaky forces like that ejector hill on Runaway Mine Train at Great Adventure. So for Dahlonega Mine Train's final score, I'm giving it a 3 out of 10. This is a very bland and boring ride, So let me know what you guys think of Dahlonega Mine Train down in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.